Hello everybody, and thank you for joining me. This is Sierra from Sierra T Designs, and today I have this stunning alcohol ink butterfly birthday card to share with you. So let's jump right in. I like to create the alcohol ink portion first when I make alcohol ink cards. I just think that this kind of gives me a feel of where the card's going, so it's kind of my preference. And I have a piece of 5x7 Yupo paper here, and I did put quite a bit of blending solution on it. This kind of helps me get a more flowy looking background, which I love with alcohol inks. That's one of my favorite things that they kind of do. And I have two colors here. I have the Gumball and the Laguna, and I have them in the big size because those are more vibrant. And if you guys have been with me for a minute, you know that I love vibrant colors. So I do kind of gravitate towards those. And I try really hard not to overthink what I'm trying to create with alcohol inks. I think that there's a point where you kind of need to leave it alone. And sometimes I cross that point, but I think in this one I didn't. I think that I stopped kind of at the right point for this background. And I think that it turned out really pretty. And I did kind of create that purple blend in the center. I knew that, of course, the blue and the purple, or the blue and the pink would make purple. And so that's kind of why I was kind of starting those colors a bit closer to the bottom where I knew the blue would kind of pull and then go up from there. So once I was happy with my background and it dried, I'm going to trim it down. So I made a 5x7 base, but it ended up being slightly smaller than, and so it's kind of an oddball size. So there's not an exact measurement for this. There's a lot of eyeballing in this card. So you're going to see me here kind of try to trim it down, and I'm going to go back and forth a few times between this and kind of how I need it to look. And it kind of hinged up a little bit there. So that cut's not even straight, to be honest with you. I had to go back and kind of trim that down a little bit later to make sure that it did end up being straight so that I could line it up nicely. But I cut this glitter piece down to 5x7, and then here I'm just kind of trimming a bit off and kind of seeing where I need to be to create the mat for my card. So it's not perfectly 5x7. It's a little bit eyeballed, and I'm not even sure of the exact measurements in the end, honestly. I kind of had to go back and forth and trim a little bit more off, but I kind of aimed for about 1/4 of an inch border around with the white base. So I mean, normally I go about 1/8 of an inch. I went slightly bigger on this one. I went about 1/4 of an inch. And I think that white border really helped it pop. And then I brought in the Tim Holtz Bold Text 1 die. And this is the happy birthday one. And I'm going to run that through my Gemini with my Magic Mat and all that. And I'm just going to have it be one layer. Normally I would create multiple layers for this. You guys know that I love that for dimension purposes. But in this, I really wanted the butterflies to be what you caught for dimension, and then the background to be eye-catching with the color. So I didn't end up actually layering up my letters as I normally would. So I'm going to just adhere down my Yupo panel to my glittery mat. And I did put a little excess glue on there just because I can find glitter cardstock can be a bit interesting to get things to adhere to sometimes. So I go a little bit overboard on glue anyway because I hate things to lift off. It just irritates me. So I kind of went a little bit specific there. And then I did kind of try to use that cutout as a template, and it sort of worked in the first little bit here, but you're going to see once I get into sticking my letters down that they ended up not being straight. So I kind of had to change directions a little bit. It didn't quite go the way I thought I was going to. So I kind of tried to use this as a template to adhere my letters down the same way they would have cut out from the die. But in the end, I end up kind of just eyeballing the layout of all the letters, and that it works for me. You could have maybe, cut out another template and not had it be quite. I put this through my Gemini twice to make sure that my letters were going to cut properly, because this is a very heavyweight cardstock I used here. So this is the same cardstock I would use for my bases. So it's 110 pounds. So I ran it through my Gemini twice, which created the issue with it bowing. So it didn't want to lay flat. And then I don't think I centered it on my card once I adhered stuff down. So it just kind of went a bit awry there. So you're going to see here when I lift this up, it's not straight, and I'm going to really see it now that I've been trying to work on the word happy. Like you can see the 2 is a bit lower than the word you. Not a big deal. I mean, it's not the end of the world. However, I do try very hard to, have my sentiments be straight if that's kind of what I'm going for. And it will stand out quite a bit on this card because it is white. So in the end, I brought in my T-square ruler and I'm kind of going to eyeball this. I have the template still above the card there, and you can see that I end up looking at it quite a bit to kind of get the alignment of the letters. However, I am going to eyeball it. I'm going to freewheel it. We're going to see what happens. And I think it turned out pretty well. It's not perfect, but if you guys have been with me for a minute, you know that I don't think that perfection is required in card making. I think it's pretty much unachievable. I think that making something is more important than having it be perfect. And so I did have to kind of eyeball some things and kind of change my my plan with some things, but I think in the end that it turned out really pretty, and I'm really happy with how this card came together. Alcohol inks always just bring me happiness because there's so much freedom to them. Hopefully that kind of makes sense, because you can't control it, right? You get what you get, and as Tim Holtz say, you don't throw a fit. And I think alcohol ink really gives me that a chance to play and to kind of just put something down and see what happens and be happy with what I get. So I do like the freedom of the alcohol inks in that sense. So now I'm going to work on the word birthday, and you see that I've put the H down. Obviously there is like 7 letters in birthday. So is there 7 letters? No, there's 8 letters. I can't count. There's 8 letters in birthday. And so the between the T and the D would be your center point. So I started with the H to kind of, or the T and the D. The T and the H is your center point. So I tried to start there so that I would be centered to where I needed the word to be. And then I did kind of try to line it up to where the letters are lined up on the die cut out there. So I knew that the H was between the 2 P's, stuff like that. I mean, again, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be exactly in line. I don't think it's really noticeable. Like, I think it turned out pretty well considering I was eyeballing the letters, but I don't think it matters. And I think that it's easier to tell when I'm sitting here telling you that I've done it. But if you received this card, I don't know that you'd even notice, because I don't think that would be the most important thing that you noticed. So I don't think that it matters. And I think that finishing a project is way more important than trying to make it perfect, because it's not achievable, and I think that it sets people back from actually creating. So I did kind of line it up here. I did push the couple letters down, try to get them straight, and then I left it, and that is my sentiment, and I think it turned out pretty good. And then I brought in the Brushstrokes butterfly dies by Tim Holtz, and I'm going to cut the bodies out of vellum. So here you see me, I'm about to run them through my Gemini. I lost some footage there, but you guys have seen me die cut things before. And then I'm also going to cut the added layer, the like highlight layer from the butterflies, in this really, really pretty glitter cardstock. So it's the same cardstock that I'm using as the mat underneath my panel. And it says platinum. It's called platinum. I think it's more of a champagne color personally. That's just my opinion on it. But I got it at my local crafty store. It's a beautiful cardstock. I've never been able to find it again. So I'll link to something I think is very similar, but I don't know if you can get this exact glitter cardstock, which is too bad because it is stunning. So hopefully I'll find it again so I can get some more of it. But I did pop out all of the highlight pieces from the back side of the glitter cardstock. I find that easier for me, just because I find it easier to see what I'm kind of popping out of the panel there. And I do set aside the big butterflies for later. I save those things. I don't know if I'll use them on a project eventually, but I like to save things like that. Like, I don't want to waste them. So I do set them aside, and I put them in the packaging with the butterfly die so that I have them in case I want to use them on a different project down the road. And then here I'm going to show you adhering the biggest of the butterflies. So the highlights, they're etched into the butterflies. So it's really easy to see where they need to go, which I think is really, really neat, because then you don't have to kind of guess where these kind of random pieces need to be. You can see where they need to be because they're etched into the base of the butterfly. So you can easily see them there. I'm using my Barely Art glue now just because it's a finer point and it's less likely to ooze out a bunch of glue onto the vellum, because you would be able to see it. So I kind of went to a thinner nozzled glue now. And I just adhered the 3 pieces, and then there is a body as well that just goes on top of one of the pieces, which I think is pretty neat too. So the body ends up with a little more dimension in it because it is a couple of layers. So I think that's kind of neat. It's like built-in dimension. You didn't have to do anything because that's how it's designed. And I did all 3 of them off camera there. And now we're just going to kind of construct the card. So I'm going to adhere my panel and my mat down to my card base. And as I said, it's 5 by 7 sort of. it's 5x7-ish. It's like a smidge smaller than a 5x7. But with that, you know, it'll fit perfectly in a 5x7 envelope. So I guess there's your golden lining of the funny sized card. But I did adhere that down, and then I kind of, again, eyeballed it to make sure that it was as straight as I could get it. And then I played with the layout of the butterflies a little bit. And then once I decided how I wanted them to lay, I used some more of that Barely Art glue, and I only adhered the center portion. I only added glue to the body of the butterfly because I wanted those wings to have the freedom of movement. If they're not, I'm not propping them up, I'm going to leave them as is, but that just gives them that freedom, right? So there is some motion in the butterfly, which I think always kind of adds a little bit of whimsy to a card too, which I always love in my card designs. So I know you guys are going to be shocked, but there is no added bling in this card. This is all the shimmer and shine I chose to add to it. I thought about it, but in the end I decided that it was just so stunning on its own that it wasn't necessary. And then I did add some of those little trimmings off of the card on the inside as well. So that is the card I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll consider leaving me a like, leaving me a comment, and maybe consider subscribing. I do new videos every Monday and Thursday. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you again very soon. Bye-bye for now.